I never thought faking being straight would feel harder than actually coming out. But there I was, shirtless in a hot tub, surrounded by bikini-clad influencers, guzzling cheap champagne, and grinning at a girl I wasn't remotely into, while stealing glances at the only other guy faking it just as hard as I was, Mason. They picked us both for a dating reality show called The Perfect Match. The premise? Straight guys and girls competing in absurd couple challenges while finding love in a villa. Think Love Island meets Survivor, with way more hair gel and scripted drama. Mason was introduced on day 2, the last guy to arrive, walking through the courtyard in ripped jeans, a white tee, and way too much confidence. The girls all squealed. The guys, including me, clapped and dapped him up like we'd known him for years. The camera loved him. So did I, instantly, though I pretended not to. When he shook my hand, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Guess we're both actors now." It wasn't loud, just loud enough. I froze. I knew exactly what he meant. That night, when the cameras were off and the crew retreated, we ended up on the balcony together, each with a beer and a forced laugh about how fake the whole thing was. "You straight?" he asked, without looking at me. "No," I said. "Same." We clinked bottles. Didn't say anything else. From that night on, we became allies. Not in a secret romance way. Not yet, but like two guys playing the same role in a very weird play. We flirted with the girls, we made flirty TikToks for the producers, we competed in dumb challenges like banana body shots and trust falls into a pool, and we kept our real selves tucked away. The producers loved pairing Mason and me in conflict. They called it a power rivalry. We'd fake argue over girls, toss passive-aggressive comments in the confessionals, even staged a near fight once after a kissing game. But behind the scenes, we'd laugh about it, over protein bars and whispered jokes in the gym. One night, after a date where I had to rub oil on some girl's back for a massage challenge, I walked into the guy's room and Mason just handed me a towel and said, "You looked like you were gonna vomit on her neck." "I almost did," I muttered, collapsing onto the bed next to his. He smirked and stretched. "We deserve Oscars for this." I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above us. "You ever think about just not pretending?" Mason went quiet. I could hear the sound of the pool outside, the hum of the villa generator, someone laughing in the kitchen. "Every damn day," he said finally. And yet, we kept going. Because we signed contracts, because we were being paid, because neither of us had the guts to be the first to slip up. But that line got thinner every day. The glances lasted too long. The off-camera touches felt too intentional. And the night that changed everything started with a broken mic. We were filming a couple's game night. I got paired with Rachel, one of the fan-favorite girls. Mason was paired with Jade, the girl he'd kissed in a pool floaty 2 nights earlier. The whole scene was lit by lanterns and string lights, like a budget rom-com set. Halfway through the game, my mic pack cut out. So did Mason's. A production assistant came over and told us they'd fix it after the next break, told us to just react big and we'll fill it in later. So we weren't being recorded, or so we thought. That was our mistake. Later that night, we found out the cameras were still running. Not the boom mics, but the fixed angle night vision cams in the common areas, the ones we never thought about, the ones we forgot existed. And they caught everything we said, everything we did, everything that happened when we finally stopped pretending. That night was supposed to be nothing. Just another fake drama-filled group hangout, where everyone flirted on cue and laughed a little too loud for the sake of sound bites. But after the challenge wrapped and the girls headed off for their sleepover confessional, Mason and I ended up in the outdoor lounge alone. No lights, no producers, no booming microphones, just the hum of the pool filter and the rustling of palm trees. I was halfway through a beer when he flopped down on the couch next to me, still shirtless from the game. The heat of his body radiated off him, and I felt it more than I should have. "Your mic's dead?" he asked. "Yeah." "Yours?" He tapped the loose wire clipped to his waistband. "Gone." I leaned my head back, closed my eyes. God. Finally. A moment without pretending. There was a pause, then Mason said, I don't even know who I'm supposed to be anymore. I looked at him. His jaw was tight, but his expression wasn't dramatic, just honest, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen from him all season. You're supposed to be a heartthrob, I said, teasing. Right. The bad boy who makes out with girls in jacuzzis and says stupid things like, I don't usually open up like this. I laughed. That line's in your top 5 greatest hits. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We sat there for a bit, not talking, just existing next to each other in the quiet. No cameras, no spotlight, just two guys too tired to keep up the act. And then he said it. I've been thinking about kissing you since week 2. My heart stopped. I turned to look at him, not sure if I misheard, if this was a joke, if he was drunk. But his face was serious, careful, like he was saying it for the first time out loud, not just to me, but to himself. Same, I said, before I could think better of it. He blinked. Yeah, I nodded, but we can't. Why not? You know why. He didn't answer right away, just sat there, breathing slow and shallow, eyes flicking between mine. Then he leaned forward, barely an inch. No cameras, he said. I should have stopped him. I should have reminded him we were still on a reality show, still under contract, still being watched, even if our mics were off. But I didn't. I leaned in too. It wasn't dramatic or fast. It wasn't a lusty soap opera moment with tongues and music swells. It was just soft, careful, real, like we were testing something sacred between us. And for the first time since the show started, I wasn't acting. His hand brushed the back of my neck. Mine landed on his bare chest. The kiss lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it cracked something wide open. When we pulled apart, we were both quiet. Not awkward, just stunned. Like we had both been holding our breath for weeks, and were only now realizing how long we'd been suffocating. Then, a tiny red light in the corner of the patio blinked. We both froze. The night cam, I whispered. Mason turned, eyes widening. No way. But there it was. The small infrared lens, perched high near the edge of the wall, aimed right at us. Neither of us said anything for a beat. Then Mason stood up, grabbed a nearby throw blanket, and tossed it over the camera. It wasn't subtle, but it was instinct. Too late, I said, standing. He nodded slowly. I know. We both looked at each other, and we knew, whatever that moment was, it hadn't been private. The next morning started like every other. Fake smiles, overcooked eggs, bikini shots by the pool. But everything felt off. Or maybe it was just me and Mason, sitting 2 stools apart at the breakfast bar like strangers. We didn't speak, didn't even make eye contact. But the tension between us was louder than any hangover groans around us. I kept thinking about that damn red light. Had someone seen the footage? Had it been uploaded to the main server? Or was it just sitting on a forgotten memory card in some production assistant's camera bag? By mid-morning, I couldn't take the waiting. I found Mason in the gym, alone, hitting the punching bag with more intensity than necessary. You think they saw it? I asked. He didn't stop swinging. If they did, they haven't said anything. But they will. He finally paused, sweat dripping down his back. He looked at me. Really looked. What if they do? He asked, like he was already preparing for the fallout. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was the idea of that footage going public, without context, without permission, made my skin crawl. Not because I was ashamed, because it wasn't meant to be seen by anyone but us. We need to talk to production, I said. About what? He shot back. That we broke character? That the straight guy arc isn't so straight anymore? I didn't respond. Because he was right. We were walking contradictions now. The exact storyline the producers would kill for. A secret romance. A twist no one saw coming. And the worst part? We signed away our right to control the narrative the moment we agreed to be on the show. Maybe it's better if we just I trailed off, not sure where I was going with it. Forget it happened? Mason said, eyes narrowing. I didn't mean that. He grabbed his towel, wiped his face, and slung it over his shoulder. I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen, he said, low and firm. I've been pretending too damn long already. The day dragged. Every time a producer passed by, I braced for it. The pulled-aside conversation, the "we need to chat about something that happened last night" line. But it never came. Not during lunch. Not during filming. Not even when we wrapped a sunset beach scene and the cameras were definitely rolling. I started thinking, maybe they missed it. Maybe the footage was corrupted, or they didn't care. Or the intern in charge of the night cam forgot to upload it. Then came the call sheet. It was taped to the fridge around 10 p.m. like always, but there was something different about it tonight. At the bottom, a single note, printed in bold. Confessional session added Mason and Jay, 11:30 p.m. solo interviews. Individual, not joint. My stomach dropped. This was it. They knew. At 11:30 sharp, I sat alone in the confessional booth. A ring light glared behind the camera. A producer I didn't recognize sat on the other side of the glass, holding a clipboard and a coffee. Hey, Jay, she said, voice overly casual. Just a few questions tonight. I nodded. How are you feeling this week? I gave the usual reality TV answer. Good. Connections are growing. A little tired, but that's expected. She smiled politely, scribbled something down. And about last night, she said slowly. There was some unexpected footage. I swallowed. We saw you and Mason on the patio, she said. The conversation, the kiss. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. We just want to know, she continued. Was that real? Or was it part of a new storyline the two of you discussed? My breath caught. They thought it might be scripted. A stunt. A twist. I laughed. Short and sharp. No, that was real. The producer raised an eyebrow. Do you want to talk about it? I thought for a second. Then nodded. Yeah, I said. I do. I didn't hold anything back. I told the confessional everything. Not for drama, not to get ahead of some headline, but because I was tired. Tired of dodging, of acting, of watching my every move like it was someone else's life on screen. I told them how the pretending started before the cameras ever rolled, how I knew what kind of type they wanted, and I gave it to them. How Mason and I figured each other out almost instantly, like two guys who had been circling this moment their whole lives. The producer didn't interrupt, just kept scribbling notes, occasionally nodded. When I finished, she asked one question. Do you want this shown? I stared at her. I mean, she said, softening, we can cut it. You know how this works. We don't have to run with this storyline if you're not okay with it. I blinked. You don't have to run with this storyline. For the first time, someone was offering me a choice. But what was the alternative? Keep playing the character they cast me as? Keep flirting with women I had no interest in, hoping no one noticed how my eyes lingered on someone else? I exhaled slowly. I want to talk to Mason first, I said. Fair, she replied. You've got an hour before his session. I found him out by the pool. Same place as last night. Same string lights overhead. But now it was quiet. Not silent, but that strange, loaded quiet that comes when everyone else has gone to bed and you're two in your head to follow. He was staring at the water, legs in the pool, arms resting behind him. You good? I asked. He didn't look over. They showed you the footage? Yeah. They asked you about it? I nodded, then sat down next to him. I told them the truth, I said. He finally turned toward me, his expression unreadable. Which part of the truth? I hesitated. That I wanted it to happen, that I've been pretending, just like you. His jaw clenched, and for a second, I thought he might pull away again. But instead, he said something I didn't expect. They told me I could leave, I blinked. What? They said if I wanted to avoid the storyline, they'd let me go. Edit me out. Say I had a family emergency or some bullshit. My chest tightened. And? I told them no. He looked at me fully now, and there was no performance left in his face. Just the guy I'd been getting to know behind the curtain. I'm tired of hiding, he said. If they want to air it, let them. At least it's real. We sat in silence, the hum of the pool filter buzzing low under the night. And then, quietly, he added, but I didn't want to say yes unless I knew you were okay with it too. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't have to think. I'm okay with it, I said. If it's us, not some twisted version they edit, but us, I'm okay. He nodded. We didn't kiss again. Not that night. We just sat there, our feet in the water, shoulders barely touching, and for the first time since stepping into the villa, I felt like I could finally breathe. The next day, the producers gathered the whole cast in the main room, a rare all-hands moment that immediately put everyone on edge. The lead producer, a woman named Laura, stood in front of the group with her usual bright smile, but even she seemed careful. "Hey everyone," she said, holding a tablet in her hands. "Before we start today's filming, there's something we want to share, a moment from earlier this week." She turned the tablet toward the TV mounted on the wall. The screen lit up. It was us, Mason and me, that night on the patio. No music, no filters, just a quiet conversation, a soft kiss, a thrown blanket over a camera, and then a fade to black. The room was completely still. Some jaws dropped, some eyes darted between us. No one said anything. Then Laura turned the screen off. "We showed you this," she said, "because it's part of the story now, but we wanted Mason and Jay to tell it, not us." And just like that, all eyes were on us. I could have panicked, could have shut down, could have faked my way through a nervous joke or walked out of the room entirely. But instead, I reached over and took Mason's hand. Firm, steady. And I said, "We didn't plan this, but we're not sorry it happened." The reaction wasn't immediate. No applause, no dramatic walkouts, no teary speeches from cast members. Just silence, the kind that stretches a little too long, makes your heartbeat spike, and forces you to fill in the blanks with whatever worst-case scenario your brain can conjure. And then someone clapped. Rachel, the same girl I'd been fake dating for half the season. She clapped, slowly, deliberately, a crooked little smile on her face. "I knew it," she said. "You two have way too much tension to be fighting over me." A few others laughed. A little awkward, but not unkind. The spell broke. Brooke gave Mason a playful elbow. "So the pool makeout wasn't your best work, huh?" Mason just shrugged, smirking. "Acting's hard." Laughter again, more relaxed this time. A few people nodded. A couple still looked stunned, probably running PR damage control in their heads, wondering how this twist would affect the show's image or their own follower count. But no one freaked out. No one said anything cruel. No one walked away. And in that moment, I realized the truth. No one really cared. At least, not in the way I was afraid they would. Later that day, the showrunners pulled Mason and me aside. They were surprisingly respectful. "We want to do this right," Laura said. "We're not trying to sensationalize your story. We're not going to slap a rainbow filter on it and call it a day." "Thank you," Mason said, and I could hear the note of caution still lingering in his voice. "But," she added, "we are going to include it. Not just the kiss. The whole thing. The tension. The moments off camera. Your choice, to be honest." I looked at Mason, he nodded. "We're in," I said. From that point on, the energy in the villa shifted. We stopped pretending, not just about being straight, but about everything. Mason and I didn't suddenly become the center of attention, but we didn't hide anymore either. We sat next to each other during interviews. We cooked together. We whispered under the covers at night, without worrying who might overhear. And the weirdest part? The audience loved it. When the first edited episode with our storyline aired, The response online was overwhelming. Clips of our late-night balcony conversation went viral. Screenshots of the kiss with captions like, "This is what authenticity looks like," made the rounds on Twitter. Fan edits popped up on TikTok. People started shipping us, calling us Jason, which I found stupid, but secretly kind of cute. We weren't just a plot twist, we were a moment. A lot of people saw themselves in us, in the awkwardness, the slow build, the hesitation, the relief. Guys who messaged me saying they'd never seen anything like it on a mainstream dating show. Girls who admitted they'd crushed on Mason but respected him more now. And yeah, there were some trolls. But their voices got drowned out fast. Authenticity has a way of silencing fake outrage. One night, 2 weeks before filming wrapped, we were alone again. Just like the first time. Same string lights. Same couch. Only this time, there was no need to whisper. I looked over at him, tracing the curve of his jaw with my eyes. He still wore the same worn-in hoodie he'd had since day one, sleeves rolled up, collar stretched out. "You still think we're pretending?" I asked. He shook his head. "Nah, this is the first time in years I've felt like I'm not acting at all." We kissed again. No cameras. No night vision. Just us. And I didn't care who knew anymore. I used to think the real world started once filming ended, that when the show wrapped and the villa emptied and we all flew back to our regular lives, that would be the moment where everything shifted. I was wrong. Because the second the final episode aired, the finale where Mason and I walked out hand in hand during the last couple reveal, that's when the real world crashed into us full speed. Some people called it brave. Others called it a gimmick. Most just couldn't look away. Our DMs exploded. News outlets reached out. Some magazine wanted to do a photo shoot. A queer dating app offered us a sponsorship deal within 24 hours. We were a headline, a brand, a couple, but we weren't prepared for any of it. "I feel like I'm watching a version of us that doesn't exist," Mason said one night as we scrolled through the chaos on his phone. "Everyone's got this idea of who we are now, and we barely even know what we are yet." He was right. We hadn't figured anything out. Not in the villa, not in the days after. We knew we wanted to see each other, but we lived in different cities, had different lives, different histories with this stuff. I was out already. Had been for years. My family knew, my friends knew, my followers knew. Mason wasn't. Not fully. His parents didn't even have Instagram. And when he told them, calmly, respectfully, face to face, the silence that followed was brutal. They said they needed time. He told me quietly, 2 days later, and then they didn't call back. My heart broke for him, even though I knew this was always a possibility. "You can stay with me," I said. He didn't say yes, but 2 days later, he showed up at my apartment with a backpack and a tight-lipped smile. Living together, even temporarily, felt like hitting the fast-forward button on a relationship we'd barely had time to define. We cooked together, watched trash TV, argued about which side of the bed was better. He left his shoes everywhere. I forgot to shut cabinet doors. But every night, we ended up under the same blanket, warm, tangled, half asleep, sometimes talking, sometimes just breathing in each other's presence like it was the only thing keeping us grounded. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and real felt good. We agreed to do one interview, one after the finale. A long-form sit-down with no clickbait questions or forced sound bites. The host asked us toward the end if we had anything we wanted to say to the people who still thought it was fake. Mason looked straight into the camera and said, "I spent most of my life pretending to be someone else. For my family, for the cameras, for everyone, really. But this, us, was never fake. I wish it had happened sooner, but I'm glad it happened at all." I squeezed his hand under the table and added, "We didn't plan this, and we didn't expect the world to care. But if even one person out there sees this and feels a little less afraid to be themselves, then it's all worth it." The interview went viral. Of course it did. But for once, it didn't feel like performance. It felt like truth. About a month after everything aired, I was in a bodega with Mason, grabbing snacks we absolutely didn't need at 11 p.m., when a guy stopped us near the fridges. "Hey," he said, a little breathless. "Sorry, I don't want to be weird, but you two were on the perfect match, right?" We both kind of froze. like we always did when someone recognized us. Mason gave a slow nod. Yeah, that's us. The guy smiled. Not a fanboy smile, but something quieter. He looked maybe 19. Hoodie, shaky hands. A little like I looked the first time I admitted to anyone I was into, guys. I wanted to say thank you, he said. Watching you too, it made me come out to my brother. I never thought I'd see people like me on that kind of show. I didn't know what to say. Neither did Mason. But then the kid added, you didn't make it look easy, and that made it feel real. And I swear, that hit harder than anything else had. Things didn't magically become perfect after that. We still had hard days. Mason still hadn't heard from his dad. I still struggled sometimes with the way people picked us apart online, like characters in a story instead of two guys figuring shit out. But we kept showing up for each other. That's what mattered. We started doing small things. Nothing overproduced. Just low-key Instagram lives, random photos, even a dumb Q&A video where Mason roasted my cooking and I exposed his awful karaoke habit. And people kept watching, not because we were dramatic, but because we were real. 6 months after the finale, we went back to the villa, not for filming, just to visit. One of the producers invited us to speak to the new cast about life after the show. It was weird walking through those halls again. The hot tub, the confessional booth, the couch where we'd sat that first night. When the crew took a break, Mason pulled me aside and pointed to the balcony. Our balcony. Come on, he said, grabbing 2 beers from the kitchen. We sat down on the same crappy outdoor couch, under the same hanging lights. You remember what you said here? He asked. That I was tired of pretending. He nodded. Me too. Then he reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out something small. At first I thought it was a joke. A bottle cap. A ring pop. But it wasn't. It was a simple silver band. He didn't kneel. Didn't make a speech. Just held it out and said, I know it's soon. I know we skipped a lot of steps. But I don't want to play the long game with anyone but you. I stared at him, blinking way too fast. You serious? He nodded. Dead serious. And I said the only thing I could. Hell yes. The cameras were long gone. No one was watching. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't matter. Because this wasn't for the show. This was just us.